Hey there, I'm Erik. 3 days after I buried my wife, my own son looked me dead in the eye and said, "You got 3 days to get out." Then, he swung on me in my own living room. I thought grief would bring family closer. Instead, it tore the mask off. Behind the tears at her funeral, there were papers signed, lies written, my house already sold before I could even say goodbye. They called me crazy, said I was slipping, but I remember every word, every whisper, every door that closed when I walked in. And when the police came, it wasn't me they took, it was him. Now tell me, how do you forgive blood that tried to bury you alive? I sat alone at the kitchen table, that same wooden table Odessa May used to set for Sunday dinner. Her favorite teacup was still in the sink blue porcelain, chipped near the rim. I didn't move it. Couldn't. That cup sat there like a witness. A quiet reminder that she wasn't coming back. It was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that presses on your chest. The kind that lets you hear every second pass like a hammer against stone. The funeral was yesterday. Folks came, hugged me, whispered, and then left quickly, too quickly. Some avoided my eyes. Some held my hand a second too long, like they knew something I didn't. I kept thinking, if grief had a sound, it wouldn't be crying, it'd be this silence. Odessa was the spine of this family. Her voice could settle a storm. She remembered birthdays, settled arguments, and held grudges for none of us. Without her, everything already felt crooked. I looked out the window. The lemon tree we planted together 35 years ago still stood, bare branches, the kind of bare that tells you time ain't always kind. Odessa used to say, "This tree's gonna outlive both of us." She laughed when she said it. I didn't laugh today. I remembered her hands, digging into the dirt, with mine. Her laugh bouncing across the backyard, like wind chimes. Back then, we believed in things lasting. But belief ain't the same as truth. I stared at that tree and asked myself something I hadn't dared say out loud. What would she think of him now? I heard the front door open. Didn't need to look. I knew that sound Quavon's footsteps were always too confident for a house he didn't build. He walked in like he owned the place. He wore a navy blue suit that fit too well and cologne that filled the air before his voice did. "Dad, we need to talk," he said. Not, "How you holding up?" Not, "You eat anything?" Just that, like I was a stranger squatting in his house. Trelawney stood behind him, quiet like usual. Her eyes stayed low, but her lips were pursed like she was holding something back or holding it in. I didn't stand up, didn't offer him coffee. He didn't deserve that kind of courtesy today. "What's this about?" I asked, though I already felt it. The change in tone, the rehearsed breath he took before speaking again. "Well," he cleared his throat, "you probably need to start thinking about next steps. You know, what comes next, now that Mom's gone. Next steps? Like this was some job I just got fired from." I looked at him, really looked. My son, my only boy. But the boy was long gone, replaced by a man who saw everything as transactional. I wanted to ask, is this what Odessa raised you to become? But I bit my tongue. Then he said it real calm, like he was reading the weather. "You've got 3 days to leave, Dad. This house is being sold." I laughed. I couldn't help it. That deep, sharp kind of laugh you give when something ain't even close to funny. "You're joking," I said. But his face stayed stone. He pulled a manila envelope from his coat. Papers. Printed. And signed. "The sale's already in motion. We've arranged everything." I looked at the signature. His. And hers. Trelawney smirked just for a second, but I saw it. A flicker of pride in the corner of her mouth. "And the will?" I asked. "The trust your mama and I set up?" He shrugged, like that was a footnote, not the foundation of our family. "I had to streamline some things," he said. "Make it cleaner for probate." That word hung in the air like a punch that hadn't landed yet. They left shortly after. No hugs, no backward glances, just the sound of the front door clicking shut. That night I sat with Odessa's trust documents. Something felt off. Her handwriting was always neat, but these pages looked reprinted. My name was there, sure, but some of the clauses changed. We'd talked about those exact lines when she was sick, and this wasn't what we agreed to. I remembered how she let Quavon handle the paperwork when the chemo got bad. Trusted him. Trusted him. I called our old family lawyer. Straight to voicemail. It was Friday night. I looked around the house, our house, and realized I didn't know what part of it was still mine. The night felt longer than it should have. I didn't sleep. Just before dawn, I stepped outside. The lemon tree was there, silent, same as me. I touched the bark. Rough. Real. 3 days, I whispered. That's all the respect I get. But I've been through worse, and I ain't going down quiet. The sun came through the blinds like it didn't know what kind of house it was shining into. I sat up on the edge of the bed, same thought running laps through my head. 3 days. Odessa used to fold my socks just right, put them at the edge of the bed, like a reminder I still mattered. Now, all that was left was a room too neat for grief. I shuffled into the kitchen. The chipped blue mug sat waiting. I filled it with black coffee. Nothing in it, just like the air in that room. Her meds used to sit on the counter. I reached for the spot like muscle memory. Empty. I stood. There, fingers spread on that cold marble, trying to keep steady. Odessa's scent had faded from the house faster than I thought it would. The lawyer hadn't called. I checked again. Still voicemail. The kind that sounds too cheerful for the mess I was in. I leaned on the counter and whispered to myself, "You waitin' on somebody to fight your battle, or you gon' stand up and swing?" The study hadn't changed much since she passed. Her lotion still lingered on the leather chair. I opened the bottom drawer where we kept the important stuff. I was digging for comfort, but what I found, it knocked the breath out of me. Power of attorney. Dated 4 weeks before Odessa passed. Stamped. Notarized. My signature was there. My name, in ink. But the date? I blinked at it. 4 weeks before she died. I wasn't even walking right. I'd been laid up, doped on meds for my knee. I remember the fog, the ache, the nurses. Odessa held my hand while I slept in that hospital bed. But sign legal papers? Ain't no way. They must have handed me that paper like it was a form for insurance. Just routine, Pops. I probably nodded, groggy, trying to breathe through the pain. And just like that, Quavon had full control over the house, the bank, everything. My hand trembled, holding the paper. Not from age, from betrayal. I leaned back in the chair and let the memory flood. How Quavon insisted on handling the bills. "You just focus on Mom. I got this." And I believed him. Trelawney was always around too. Just organizing things. That's what she said. But I remembered now her fingers dancing across my laptop, always logging into something, never asking. One night I saw her snapping photos of our binders. Said it was for the doctor. Odessa just looked down. Said nothing. I pulled the trash can out from under the desk, dug deep. There it was, folded, stained, but legible. A note in Odessa's handwriting. Q says we should sign it. Easier later. Should. Not must. Not need to. That word held doubt. I felt my throat close. My Odessa, who planned every Thanksgiving to the minute, used the word should in a legal note. What kind of pressure was she under? Trelawney had always brought her that green tea. Same brand, every time. Said it was soothing. Odessa once told me it made her feel floaty, like the edges of her thoughts got blurry. I figured it was the chemo. Now, I wasn't so sure. Had she been speaking for Odessa when I wasn't in the room? Saying, he agrees, when I hadn't even been asked? I remembered one moment Odessa tried to tell me something, barely a whisper. Trelawney walked in, all loud heels and fake smiles. Odessa closed her mouth. Just like that. I didn't think much of it then. Now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I stood and grabbed the printer from the corner. scanned every page, emailed them to Glenn, a coworker from my auditing days. Man had a memory like a vault. If something was off, he'd spot it. I didn't go charging at Quavon or his wife. Not yet. You don't walk into battle with an empty clip. I wrote down everything. Dates, moments, who said what, when Odessa winced, when Trelawney spoke too quickly, when my gut told me something was wrong but I ignored it. Odessa used to say, "Trust is earned. Betrayal leaves a print." She was right. And that print was smudged all over the walls of this house. I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. I looked tired, but I didn't look broken. Not anymore. That night, I sat in the living room. No lights on. Just the hum of the fridge and the creak of this old house settling. From down the hall, I heard laughter coming from the guest room. Quavon and Trelawney, cackling like they hadn't just gutted me. I closed my eyes and smiled, because come morning, they were going to learn something. You treat a man like he's invisible, don't be shocked when he starts watching everything. Sunday mornings used to mean something in this house. The smell of Odessa's biscuits in the oven, the hum of her gospel records spinning while she ironed my shirt for service. But now, the house was just air and dust. Sunlight crawled through the blinds like it didn't know where to settle. I sat at the table, staring at the same coffee mug she used every morning, the one that still had a faint lipstick mark on the rim. The street outside was alive, with the sound of church bells and neighbors laughing. But it all felt cruel. The world kept spinning, and mine had stopped. After a while, I got up, got dressed, and walked toward Mount Olive. I told myself it was for clarity, not comfort. My knees protested each step, but my mind was sharper than it had been in weeks. When I walked in, heads turned. I could feel the whispers before I heard them, pity-sweet and poisonous. I sat in the last pew, away from the sunlight pouring through the stained glass. The choir sang with all the strength of people who still believed everything could be fixed with faith. Pastor Eugene stepped up, his voice smooth but firm. The sermon was about forgiveness, about letting go of what can't be changed. His eyes found me, and he held that gaze longer than a man should. I didn't look away. When the final hymn came, I couldn't bring myself to stand. Odessa would have nudged me and whispered, "Sing anyway, baby." But that voice wasn't there anymore. The choir finished, the congregation prayed, and I sat still, realizing something. Faith isn't about silence. It's about standing tall when everyone expects you to bow. I slipped out before anyone could stop me. The sun outside was too bright. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and when I saw the name, my stomach tightened. Mr. Hightower, the family lawyer. I stepped to the side of the building and answered. "Mr. Lee," he said, voice cautious. "I've reviewed your documents." The tone told me something was wrong before the words did. "Go ahead," I said quietly. He exhaled. "There's a new version of the trust. It appeared 3 days before Mrs. Lee passed." My pulse jumped. "That's not possible. It was submitted by your son," he continued. "The signatures look authentic, but the notary stamp, it's not right. Smudged. Doesn't match her official seal. And I didn't draft this version. Someone changed it after I did." The air went heavy. My hand tightened on the phone until my knuckles ached. "You're saying it's forged," I said. "I'm saying something isn't what it should be," he replied carefully. "If it is forged, we'll need proof before we act. Keep this between us, Mr. Lee." I thanked him, but the words came out hollow. I leaned against the brick wall, eyes closed. Betrayal doesn't shout, it whispers, and you only realize it's been in your house when it's too late. When I got home, the clock ticked loud in the silence. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the phone on the counter, wondering how long I'd been blind. Then came a knock at the door. Pastor Eugene stood there with a casserole dish wrapped in foil, his eyes soft but troubled. "Thought you could use a hot meal," he said. I let him in. He set the dish on the counter and took off his hat, turning it in his hands. "There's something I need to tell you, Erik." I braced myself. "What is it, Pastor?" He hesitated, then spoke low. The day after you and Odessa signed those papers, I saw your son and Trelawney behind the church office. They were arguing. I felt my stomach twist. Arguing about what? Money, he said. I heard her say, "He'll never know until it's too late." Then they saw me, and she changed the subject. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to shrink. Even a man of God had seen what I didn't want to believe. He looked down, ashamed. "I didn't want to meddle, but I thought you should know." I nodded slowly. "You did the right thing, Pastor." After he left, I didn't touch the casserole. I went straight to the drawer in my study and pulled everything out: the trust, the power of attorney, the will drafts. I spread them across the kitchen table, every page a weapon waiting to be understood. 30 years in accounting had taught me that lies have fingerprints, even if you have to look close to see them. I studied the handwriting, the dates, the way Odessa's signature curved different from the others. Her hand had been weak at the end, but not this week. The paper smelled like fresh toner, not like something that had sat in our files. I circled every inconsistency, every mark that didn't match. "The devil hides in details," Odessa used to say when she balanced the church budget. I whispered it now like a prayer, and I'm gonna find him. The tremor in my hands wasn't from age anymore, it was from anger. Controlled, focused. I reached for my old leather notebook, the one I used back in my audit days, and wrote, "If they stole what's mine, I'll let the truth take it back." Then I picked up my phone, pressed record. Erik Lee, October 18th, beginning official record. Tomorrow, I'd visit the notary's office. I'd find the logs, the seals, every name they thought I wouldn't question. This wasn't about revenge, it was about proof. I turned to Odessa's photo hanging on the wall. She was smiling, that same soft smile that used to pull me through every bad day. "You didn't leave me weak," I said. "You left me ready." That night, I sat by the window with the lights off, watching the shadows dance on the lawn. The papers were stacked neatly beside me, my evidence waiting. I almost convinced myself I was imagining things when one of those shadows moved. Slow, intentional, watching. I didn't move, didn't breathe. That's when I realized the fight wasn't coming. It was already here. The morning came slow. Light touched the corners of the living room, like it wasn't sure it belonged there anymore. The house felt colder than usual, like Odessa had taken the warmth with her. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, the knot in my chest tightening. That call from Hightower kept running through my mind. His voice, the way he said, "Something's not right." Walking past Odessa's photo in the hallway, I paused. Her eyes were smiling in that picture, but all I could see now was how much she didn't get to say before they buried her truth. My phone buzzed. A message from Shalitha. "Look what I found." That's all it said, but I knew. My gut told me something big was coming. I tapped the message and stared at the link. Didn't open it yet. I went into my study, sat down at my desk, and opened the folder marked Security, Home. Click, nothing. Some files were there, but not all. The dates were off. Gaps where there shouldn't have been. The footage from last week, gone. Just a note that read, "Corrupted." I opened a backup from a month earlier. Different file sizes, different timestamps. I knew these systems inside out. It was the same setup I installed when Odessa's arthritis got bad so she could feel safe, home alone. I remember Quavon asking for the admin login. "Just in case," he said. I gave it to him. Like a fool. And now they'd used it to cover their tracks. My jaw locked. I stared at the screen, my reflection in the monitor looking older, angrier. Then came another buzz. Shalitha again, this time a video file attached. I clicked. The camera was shaky but clear behind the church office, same place Pastor Eugene mentioned. The audio picked up voices. Trelawney, Quavon, their tones sharp, heated. "You said he wouldn't find out," Quavon hissed. Trelawney snapped. "He won't. Not until it's all done." Quavon looked around, voice low. "You sure we're covered?" I changed what needed changin'. By the time he realizes, the house is sold and split. I paused the video, breathed, hit play again just to hear it twice. They sounded like strangers, no like enemies smiling in my face. I saved the video to a USB, emailed it to Mr. Hightower, and blind copied myself. I uploaded it to a cloud folder under a new name, Odessa Truth. For the first time since her funeral, I felt the scales start to shift. My grief had company now, cold, focused resolve. I leaned back, phone in hand, playing the video again without sound, just watching their faces, how casual betrayal looked when they thought no one was watching. I called Marzel, old friend from my audit days, a man who knew how to read between numbers and between lies. "I've got something real this time," I said. "Email it," he replied. Tonight, I hung up and opened my notebook. Not the one for records, my personal one. I wrote down 3 names. Then, under each, I listed questions. Not to accuse, but to corner. Why change the trust? When did you learn about the revised will? What else are you hiding from me? Each question a match. Each answer a chance to burn the lies to ash. My eyes drifted back to the hallway. I walked toward Odessa's photo. Whispered, "They smiled at you like they loved you. Same way they're smiling at me now." Evening approached slowly. I didn't turn on the lights, just let the shadows lengthen around me. The text came at 6:04 p.m. "Dad, dinner at 7? We need to talk." I replied, "See you then." This time, I wouldn't come empty. I put the USB in my breast pocket, checked the video twice, then again. At 6:45, I stood in front of the mirror, holding Odessa's old mug in both hands. I used to tease her about how chipped it was. She'd say, "It still holds coffee, doesn't it?" I set it down gently. When I pulled into Quavon's driveway, the house looked peaceful from the outside, but peace was a costume tonight. We sat at the table like nothing had changed. Smiles, small talk. Trelawney complimented my jacket. I nodded, didn't speak much. Then Quavon raised his glass. To family staying strong through hard times. That's when I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "I have something to share," I said, locking eyes with him. The light came in soft that morning, slipping through the curtains like it was trying not to wake me. But I was already up. Been up for a while. Couldn't sleep much after what happened. My mind kept going back to their faces, the way Quavon looked at me like I was some old relic he didn't know what to do with. The fake officers. The paper in my hand. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my hands. These hands that built the porch, patched the roof, held Odessa's face the night she passed. The house was still. Not the peaceful kind of stillness, but a waiting kind. I walked through its slow hallway, kitchen, back bedroom, seeing echoes of life that used to be. Odessa's apron still hung by the pantry. Her teacup sat upside down in the drying rack, dust lining the rim. I poured myself a fresh one, sat by the window, and watched the wind dance in the trees. Then the phone rang. Quavon didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We're holding a family meeting tonight, 7 o'clock, at the house." I didn't say much, just, "I'll be here." Then he hung up. I didn't touch the tea again. Just sat there, holding it, thinking. They were making their move. I felt it in my bones. And I was ready. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, the cars started pulling up. Not just family neighbors, too. Even Mrs. Langford from down the block. And she don't leave her house for nothing but Sunday service. Trelawney came in with a tray of lemonade, smiling like it was a church social. But her eyes were too wide, too bright. They had set the living room up like a courtroom. Chairs circled tight, all facing one direction toward mine. They placed me dead center, like I was already guilty. Quavon walked in last, followed by a man I didn't recognize, young, suit too tight, holding a real estate binder. Pastor Eugene was already there, standing by the window like he wanted to vanish into the curtains. When the broker laid a glossy pamphlet on the table, I saw it was open to a page with my address. A big red stamp said, "Pending sale." My hands stayed in my lap. Quavon stood up, looked around, and cleared his throat like he was about to read scripture. "This has gotten too big," he began. "We need closure. We can't live in confusion anymore." Then he pulled out papers. Copies of that so-called trust they forged. "This document says Dad agreed to sign over the house to me and Trelawney. It's all legal." He started reading from it like it was the gospel. The room shifted. Some folks nodded, others squirmed. I caught Mrs. Langford whisper something to her husband. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, Trelawney lifted her hand. "Let's let him finish," she said, fake sweet. "Betrayal tastes like copper. It burns the back of your throat." When Quavon finished reading, he sat down, looking proud like he just saved the family from a fire. But the only fire in that room was the one building in my chest. Then the door opened again. 2 men stepped in. Uniforms, badges that caught the lamplight. Not police, not really, but dressed up enough to make some folks believe. They walked slow, deliberate, holding out more papers. "Mr. Lee," one of them said, "you've been served with a court order to vacate the premises within 24 hours. A gasp went through the room. The real estate agent stood up straighter. Pastor Eugene looked down at his shoes. Quavon nodded toward the men like he was directing a play. "We're trying to avoid trouble," he said. "Let's make this easy." I didn't move. The older man handed me the document. It was light, too light. The seal looked printed, not embossed. The dates didn't match anything I'd ever seen in official court documents. "Which division you with?" I asked. The man hesitated. "Downtown." "Which office?" He looked at the other man. Didn't answer. I handed the paper back. "You're not officers. You're actors in a bad play." Quavon stepped forward. "Dad, you don't have to make this harder than it has to be." "Hard?" I said, standing up slow, letting my cane press into the floor. "You don't know hard." The room froze. I looked right at Quavon. "I'm not calling you son tonight. That title's earned." His jaw tensed. I turned to the crowd. "You can't use the law if you broke it to begin with." Trelawney crossed her arms. "Dad, this isn't about pride." I cut her off. "No, it's about truth. And you all better start choosing sides, because when the dust clears, lies don't hold." I pointed to Pastor Eugene. "You saw them that night at the church, behind the fellowship hall. You heard the deal." He looked like he'd been struck. Then he nodded. They were arguing over dates, money, something about needing signatures fast. That did it. The room shifted. Some folks stood. Some sat like their spines had gone soft. The real estate agent packed up his binder and headed for the door without a word. The fake officers followed. I turned to what was left of them. I built this house with these hands, poured the foundation, nailed the beams, loved a woman in every room, raised children who now stand against me. But I ain't leaving, not tonight. No one spoke. I walked over to the front door, opened it wide, and stood aside. "If you came here with lies in your pocket, leave them on the porch." One by one, they walked out. Some with heads down. Some still holding on to their fake truths. Only Odessa's picture stayed behind, watching. Outside, night had fallen thick and heavy. I stood there, cane in one hand, heart in the other. They thought they'd seen the fight in me, but I was just getting started. The night after the meeting didn't pass, it lingered. Hours felt like days, stretched thin between the silence and the weight of what had been said. The air was thick, heavy with shame and memory. Every sound pipe's creaking, wind brushing against the siding felt amplified. I lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, as if it could give me answers. But it was Quavon's voice I kept hearing, that smooth, rehearsed tone he used when he said, "We have medical proof." That was what stuck. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to the people he wanted to convince: neighbors, church folks, maybe even the courts. I knew that move. I'd seen it in others before. First, they isolate you. Then they discredit you. Then they erase you. I sat up slow, walked to the closet, and pulled out an old shoebox where Odessa kept her church tape songs, sermons, random Sunday meetings. At the bottom was the tiny voice recorder she used. I held it in my hand, thumb brushing the switch. My mind was no longer clouded. It was sharpened. Morning came and brought with it a new rhythm. I left my phone charging on the coffee table, screen glowing like I wasn't paying attention. Then I settled back into my recliner, reclined just enough to look like I was napping. Door cracked. It didn't take long. "I think it's time," Trelawney whispered. "He's slipping," Quavon replied, voice lower. "We'll use Dr. Langston's old evaluation, the one from before Mama passed. Won't they check the date? We'll backdate it. Say it's just confirmation of what everyone's already seeing." I didn't blink. My heart was steady, metronome still. The recorder picked up every syllable, every betrayal. They kept talking about power of attorney, how they'd word the notice, even who to call at the city to push the paperwork through fast. I labeled the file Sunday, Lies, MP3, uploaded it straight to the cloud. I didn't even flinch, just whispered under my breath, "You raised the wrong man to fool." Right after lunch, a knock came. Not loud, hesitant. I opened the door to see Sister Mariah from church, dressed in soft lavender, her Bible clutched against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her standing. Her eyes were red. "Erik," she said, voice trembling, "can I sit with you for a minute?" I stepped aside. We sat in the living room. She didn't touch her tea. "I need to clear my soul," she said, barely above a whisper, "before God takes me." She told me 3 weeks before Odessa passed, she'd notarized a will for her, handwritten, plain, but clear. It named me as sole owner. Odessa wanted to be sure no one could twist things, she said. But then, a few days later, I saw Quavon. He had another version, same notary seal, same date, but it wasn't the same paper. Tears slid down her face. I let it go. I told myself, maybe Odessa changed her mind, but I knew something wasn't right. I didn't get angry, not at her. I simply stood, walked over to the shelf, pulled down my camcorder, and turned it on. "Mariah," I said, steady, "tell that story again." She did, word for word, clear and slow. I thanked her, hugged her gently, promised her safety. Then I got to work. I gathered every piece: voice recording, Mariah's video, old bank receipts, scans of Odessa's notes, everything that smelled like truth. I called Mr. Hightower, my old friend and lawyer. "It's time," I said. "I'll be there in the morning." I labeled a folder on my laptop, the Lee case full truth. Made copies. One went on a flash drive in my pocket. One in a box I gave to Shalitha, the only one I trusted anymore. The sun began to dip again, just like the night before. I sat on the porch, cane across my lap, watching the world move like it hadn't just come apart. A couple neighbors waved. I nodded, calm. No one knew what was bubbling under the surface. "The loudest man in the room," I whispered, "ain't always the one with the power. Sometimes it's the one who knows when to speak." I felt Odessa near, her voice, her spirit. The past had cracked open, and from inside, the truth was crawling back out. As the night wrapped around the house, my phone buzzed on the table behind me. One message. No name. "We know what you're doing." I looked at it, then smiled. I woke before dawn, the sky still dark, when I first heard voices downstairs. Soft, almost secret. My heart hardened. I slid out of bed, cane in hand, and moved silently through the shadows. In the living room, through the half-open doorway, I saw Quavon bent over a contract pages splayed, pen lying beside it. He froze when he saw me there. "Dad, I was just," he stammered. I didn't let him finish. I stepped forward, every weighted step, telling him I wasn't the same man he thought he could walk over. My chest tightened. The betrayal was now physical, in paper, in ink. "Show me that contract," I said evenly. He hesitated, glancing at Trelawney, who stood in the corner, eyes wide. He slid the papers toward me. I pulled them close, scanning fast. My name was barely there, almost footnote. His name, as seller, bold. The broker's printed name, to someone I recognized from years ago, when that man had eyed my property and offered to buy. "Clean up," Quavon muttered. I looked at neighbors' windows, some blinds cracked. They were peeking. I tapped the document. Wrong margins, mismatched signatures, a price far below market. I pulled out my phone, snapped photos, time-stamped them, sent them to Mr. Hightower with a caption, "Contract unsigned by me." Quavon's face drained. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Then Shalitha stepped forward, face steady. She held out her phone. I took it and pressed play. I heard Quavon's voice. "Dad doesn't deserve this house. He's broken. We'll sell and split." Then Trelawney, "We'll tell him it's for his benefit." The room went silent. Quavon's face changed color, drained, features folding inward. I didn't shout. I just sat back and watched the recording speak. Neighbors shifted. One coughed. The broker gasped. Silence broke. I held the recording in both hands. "You brought me here to fail," I said quietly. "I bring you truth instead." I asked Quavon to explain, in front of everyone, why he erased my name. His voice cracked. He said something vague about legal protections, estate taxes, financial burdens. None fit. Pastor Eugene's eyes flicked away. Some neighbors nodded as if ashamed they couldn't defend me. Trelawney's lips trembled. The broker stuttered. I thought it was legal." I leaned forward. "If you signed something without my consent, that's fraud. Plain and simple." Power shifted. Quiet, like sunrise, pushing night aside. Neighbors stood. Some came forward to me. One said, "I had no idea." Another, "We believed you were gone." Quavon stepped toward me, anger flashing, but I didn't flinch. "You used my love," I said, voice soft but firm. "Now you'll pay with truth." I handed the recording to the broker, telling him to verify it with his own ears. I told the room, "You're witnessing a rebirth. I won't be silenced again." A few claps echoed. Half steps of support. Quavon stared, defeated. Trelawney stared at the floor. I rose, holding both the contract and Shalitha's phone. The turning point had come. I waked to my phone vibrating nonstop, neighbors, texting, calls from the lawyer, emails stacking up like warnings. My chest tightens just thinking what overnight brought. I rushed to the computer. The folder with the recording, the one I titled Sunday, Lies. MP3 is gone. Deleted. The backups? Corrupted files. Empty directories. My heart drops. Someone tried to erase the truth. I dig deeper. That crucial audio file from Shalitha now shows broken timestamps, some segments overwritten or shifted. The contract I saved with my lawyer is missing pages. Odessa's notary documents have been swapped for older versions, ones with no legal weight. When I call Quavon's team out, they shrug and say, "Technical error. Files corrupted." Like that makes it okay, but I know better. They're trying to steal the evidence before anyone sees it. They can't rewrite your soul, but they sure tried to rewrite proof. By midday, the pressure builds. Community chatter shifts. Some neighbors murmur doubts. Quavon's lawyer leaks rumors. He's unstable, memory failing. The broker retracts statements, saying file corruption is common. Even Pastor Eugene, pressured by whispers, steps back toward neutral ground. The walls close in. The case isn't just legal anymore. It's social, spiritual, about honor. Then, unexpected salvation arrives. Sister Mariah stands at my door, trembling, but resolute, clutching a legal folder. She hands me a hidden copy of the real will, authenticated with her original stamp and signature. She also reveals emails. Quavon had asked her last month to help finalize paperwork. The documents prove the real deed was swapped, not lost. My hope surges. This reversal I craved. I call Mr. Hightower immediately, forwarding every file and video. I demand Quavon retract his statements publicly. I draft a press release. My name was stolen, but not my truth. I rehearse lines, calm, clear, with no space for lies to hide. Neighbors begin to shift back toward me. The tide is turning. The evening sun slips low behind the horizon. The house hums quiet. Outside, I swear I hear the stir of challenge. Tonight will decide how this ends. I woke before the sun, the sky still carrying that heavy blue before dawn. My suit hung crisp on the closet door, charcoal gray, like the one Odessa always said made me look ready for anything. I shaved, slow, steady. Hands only shook once. Downstairs, I checked everything. The files, the statements, the notarized papers, all in the same manila folder I carried to church that one last Sunday she was alive. Outside, the courthouse grounds were already filling. Some folks nodded when they saw me. Others stayed silent, eyes heavy with question. I could feel them all watching, weighing. But my focus was narrow. I rubbed my thumb across the worn edge of Odessa's photo in my coat pocket, whispered, "Let's finish this together." Inside the courtroom, the judge spoke with that voice that could calm fire or ignite it. He reminded the room what was at stake: ownership, fraud, dignity. Quavon stood first. His hands were clenched, his eyes darting. My lawyer laid it all out. The original will, audio recordings, notarized papers, every piece laid down like bricks on a path back to truth. You could hear a pin drop when that recording played. Trelawney's voice saying, "We'll tell him it's for his benefit." I didn't look away from the jury. I didn't shift in my seat, because when truth shows up wearing boots, you let it stomp. The judge paused long, hands folded tight. Then he spoke clear. The court rules in favor of the plaintiff. The original will stands. Any attempt to alter its content is declared fraudulent. He turned to Quavon. "You are hereby ordered to publicly acknowledge your wrongdoing." My son stood up, eyes red, hands limp. "I was wrong," he said. "I betrayed my father." The whole courtroom went still. No gasps, no murmurs, just stillness, like the truth had sucked all the noise out the room. I didn't stand right. Away. I let the moment settle. Then, slow and calm, I rose. "You don't deserve prison," I said. "What you need is truth, restitution, and a soul-searching you can't buy your way out of." Some folks shifted in their seats. Others looked down. The judge nodded. Quavon bowed his head. I walked back to my chair without another word. Outside, the sun was up, the press waiting. Microphones thrust in my face. "This was never about revenge," I said. "It's about reclaiming dignity, mine and my wife's." People clapped. Some cried. Pastor Eugene stood off to the side, eyes wet. He didn't speak, just gave me a small nod, the kind of nod that says, "I see you now." Later that day, I stood on my front porch, the house behind me, finally, legally mine again. Shalitha hugged me, long and tight. Odessa's lemon tree danced in the wind, like it knew something had turned. That evening I walked each room slow, touched the wood Odessa had stained, sat in her rocking chair. On the mantel I placed a frame with one line: "Truth always finds light." I poured myself some tea, sat quiet, no TV, no music, just the hum of the house, breathing easy again. Then I picked up the old recorder, hit play. Odessa's choir voice filled the room, soft, strong. Trouble don't last always. I smiled. Let the tears come, not from pain, from peace. Some wounds don't need to be forgotten. They just need to be seen. And some men don't break. They bend, then rise.